The Nigerian Prison Service, as a custodial institution, is a third arm of the criminal justice system, established primarily to execute court pronouncements. The peculiarity of prison assignment bestows on it the added responsibility of reformation and rehabilitation of lawbreakers, and the society expects offenders to be assisted to develop the capacity to live crime-free lives on discharge from the prisons. How well the prison authorities have been able to discharge this onerous task has, however, been a subject of debate among Nigerians. Often canvassed as impediments are inadequate human capacity, logistics constraints, and lack of relevant infrastructure to cope with the present level of sophistication in crime. True to this argument, the authority, with 244 prisons spread across the country, has about 98 of them over 100 years old. They are therefore not only weak, but also not fit to provide reliable custody for the present-day criminals. To compound this problem is the phenomenal increase in the number of awaiting trial detainees, sometimes rising as high as 71% of the total inmate population. In 1985, the inmate population was 53,786 and 21,515, representing 40% were awaiting trial detainees. However, by 1990, the figure had risen to 55,312, out of which 27,665, or 50%, were awaiting trial population. In 2010, though the total inmate population went down to 46,586, awaiting trial figure, however, shot up to 69%, and this trend continued to an all-time high figure of 71% in 2016. With just 268 court duty vehicles in its fleet to convey close to 50,000 awaiting trial persons to 5,620 courts spread across 774 local governments, the task became impossible to accomplish. The inability of the prison authority to cope with the pressure turned out to be one of the sources of congestion in the prisons.
Criminal justice administration depends on the availability of the prisoner in the court. So when we say that we need to have vehicles to convey prisoners to court, we are not asking for vehicles that will carry to our houses. We are asking that vehicles should be made available because prisoners have rights to free and fair trial. So that prisoner, if he's going to be in court on a particular day, he has the right to appear in that court. Now, the person to move that prisoner from the prison to the court is the prison. But where you come into the prison, there is no vehicle to take that person to the court. I commend this government because they have responded. But I'm only telling them that that thing they have done is a tip of the iceberg. And if they don't sustain it, it's a yearly thing, it's necessary, it's compulsory because of our security, because of criminal justice, and because of the well-being of the total society. You are not doing anybody any favor. If they do not sustain it, these few vehicles they release will soon go into comatose and will come back to cry again that we can't take prisoners to court.
When people look at the number of people, the percentage of awaiting trial in our prison, it says something about our human rights record. It says that we are not safeguarding and protecting and promoting the rights of people, particularly the poor. And I wish to remind you of what Mandela says, that a country is not judged by how it treats its privileged citizens, but how it treats its lowest citizens. He also said that if you want to know how a country treats its citizens, visit its prisons. And I'm saying that because the majority of the people who are awaiting trial in our prisons are the poor. That is why I'm making that statement. And so for me, we're all responsible for it. Society is responsible for it. The judiciary is responsible for it. The police is responsible for it. And of course, the prisons. And because we're all responsible for it, we have to join hands together to solve the problem.
Despite the efforts of previous prison administrations, these inadequacies continue to manifest and oftentimes lead to unrest among the prisoners, resulting in escapes and jailbreaks. Like most public institutions in Nigeria that needed a new orientation and direction, it was obvious that the prison service was yearning for a rebirth. Lieutenant General Abdul Rahman Dambazo knew the enormity of the challenges as the supervising Minister of Interior, under which the prison service is located.
I look at the prison not as a platform for retribution or revenge. I look at prison as a place whereby people who have violated the law in one way or the other should have opportunity to be reformed, to be rehabilitated, so that they can return back to the society, whereby they will be useful to themselves and to the society as a whole. But you cannot really achieve that unless you create the conducive environment that will enable you carry out that. Because it doesn't make sense. You send somebody into prison and he comes out worse than he entered. So that is one. And to do that, you need first to even ensure that the wardens who are in charge of the prisons have the capacity to do that in terms of training, in terms of equipment, in terms of their welfare.
It was in the midst of this that on the 21st May 2016, the Kebbi State-born Jafaru Ahmed was appointed the Controller General of Prisons by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. His appointment was greeted with baptism of fire as prison escape was recorded in Kuje, Kotonkarfe, and Nsukka prisons in quick succession. The fourth, that would have been a major jailbreak in Abakaliki prison, was foiled. Stemming the tide of unrest was no doubt a major problem, but the need to meet the reformation and rehabilitation needs and guarantee humane custody of prisoners was no less important. Thus, the task that confronted the Controller General was not only multifaceted but daunting. The Controller General, as a seasoned officer, is conversant with these problems and therefore left no one in doubt of his readiness to take on the challenge headlong.
There were challenges of logistics, there was infrastructural decay, there was lack of motivation on the part of the staff because of stagnation and various other things. And these challenges overall affected the Nigerian prison service. So we are able to massively intervene in infrastructural decay. If you go around the prisons across the country, you find so many rehabilitation works going on, new constructions going on ongoing and completion of prisons. And we are happy to say that this has radically changed the environment in our prisons across the country. And be able to fulfill our mandate, we need to restore discipline. And that was also part of my priorities. So I'm happy to say that looking over, we've been able to restore discipline into the service. People are doing their work, and the various jailbreaks, riots, and escapes that has confronted me on my assumption of duty as Controller General of Prisons are gradually dying down because people are doing their work as they should be.
The prison boss chose capacity building as a convenient entry point to addressing the myriad problems. This is based on the understanding that an organization is as vibrant and credible as the exposure given to the workforce.
It was one of my priority areas to ensure that training and retraining of staff becomes a very serious priority. And I'm happy to say, over the last 1 year, we have been able to train our staff in our various institutions. As I speak to you, all our training institutions are currently fully functional, having one course or the other. And even at the expiration of their courses, we have shorter courses that we are going to embark this year as to the lowest rank of PA3. We want to continue exposing people to various aspects and rudiments of the service. We have had help from various development partners. Almost 120 of our staff is living to the United States, specifically to Colorado, in order to receive a 2 weeks training in the United States. So, and we have had several interventions of seminars, workshops in various areas that directly affect the service. The service is regaining its feet and is repositioning itself for greater service in order to meet off its mandate that is assigned to it by the government.
To inculcate in the officers and men the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, the Nigerian Prison Service, in collaboration with development partners, organized a workshop for command officers in Abuja. The Act, which emphasizes quick trial of cases and the use of alternatives to custodial punishment, will go a long way in solving the problem of congestion of awaiting trial persons in the prisons.
The implementation of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 that we have, which has set detention time limits. Part 30 of that act set detention time limits at 14 days times 3. It allows for only 3 renewal of 14 days each. And if we abide by that law, after those period of 14 days, of 3 renewals of 14 days each, the judge shall unconditionally issue an order of release of that person. If we implement that part of the law, it will help. Part 44 of the ACJ Act, which is on probation, community service, that act is very important. I used to think that jail delivery, and by jail delivery we're talking about the visit of the CJs to the prisons as one example. I used to think that jail delivery could decongest and depopulate the prison. But that is no longer my popular view, although it is a component, because we have to do everything that we can do. But jail delivery cannot depopulate our prisons. And the reason is very simple. I have been working and visiting prisons for years, and we have also been providing legal aid for a lot of people. And we have observed, visiting prisons and talking to inmates, that majority of the people awaiting trial are there for capital offenses, which are ordinarily not bailable. The CJ cannot visit a prison and free an inmate who is held in prison awaiting trial on count of murder, manslaughter, armed robbery. Therefore, chief judges go to prison with the intention to decongest a prison just to release very few. Therefore, jail delivery alone cannot do it. There is no country that sends everybody to prison that would not have an issue of prison congestion. We send everybody to prison. That is a major issue. And therefore, we need to implement that law. Those parts of that law need to be implemented, so that not everybody goes to prison, and not everybody even come in contact with the criminal justice in the first place. There should be diversion for cases that we can divert. But those who go to the criminal justice system, there should be alternative way of punishing them. And this has to be done. And the law, our law, beautiful law, has provided for this, but unfortunately, it has not been implemented. And as you know, I think just about 5 states, including the FCT, has even domesticated that law. And that is a critical issue to us.
You must look at criminal justice process as a holistic process. It is a process that has different players, both from the law enforcement agencies, the prosecuting powers, to the courts, to the correctional agencies, and all the rest of that. You need to make sure that each one does what it ought to do, and they are coordinated in such a way that delays are not provided there. In doing this, you also need to ensure that there is oversight mechanisms, oversight of all these various processes. Jail delivery process is a review process, it's an oversight process. It is not meant to bring down as the only solution to address prison overcrowding or to address the high number of persons awaiting trial. It cannot. Just also like as one approach cannot bring down or reduce the number of persons awaiting trial or the persons who have not been convicted, because it's a systemic problem. Now, if you want to reduce the number of persons who are awaiting trial, there are 2 major things that needs to be done in terms of processes that need to be controlled. You need to make sure that you control the number of persons who are received into prisons and other detention facilities in this status. And then also you reduce the duration they stay once they come into that system. You want to make sure that there is a proper oversight that decide or processes that determine who comes, when they come, at what point do you determine that somebody who you have arrested can be brought, and what kind of offenses can this can actually be applied in this case, and who checks who. So who monitors what the police is doing to make sure that there is no arbitrary arrest and there is no arbitrary detention but at the police stations? Who monitors what the prisons do, so that even though they have no other thing to do but say, okay, whatever valid warrant they have that they received, who monitors what happens in prison to ensure that those who are in prison are those, not only that those who have the valid warrant, but there are not other reasons that should keep somebody beyond when they are supposed to be there, which is actually part of the thing that actually the jail delivery does. Now, who also monitors the courts? So is there any way that you make sure, okay, the judge in this particular court, how long does it take you to conclude a particular case? Even the prosecutors. So the question is that we need to have a check against even the defense lawyers. So my point is that there must be mechanisms that monitor, assesses performance and tracks performance and rewards good services, according to the set criteria for each of the agencies that are working on this level.
Prison overcrowding has almost defied known solutions and has continued to make mockery of welfare programs for the inmates. Stakeholders therefore advocate for a holistic approach
to deal with the big problem, which indeed is the problem that is making Nigeria look so bad to the international community and to everyone. The big, huge problem of high number of awaiting trial persons or high number of persons whose sentences have not been concluded or who are still unconvicted, and the long duration they stay. The real issue is that we have not adopted a holistic approach. It has to be holistic, it has to be sustainable, and we have to think it through.
The government should also begin to think, giving priority in their budgeting to all this arms of criminal system. It should not be empowering one at the expense of the other. Each time they talk about security or fighting crime, more attention is given to the police. There's nothing wrong in that. But when you think about policing, you should also that once you empower the police, what it means that you are increasing the number of arrests. And also, increasing the number of arrests means that you are creating more job for the judiciary. If judiciary is not receiving the commensurate attention as the police is receiving, there's going to be a problem. And of course, the multiplier effect that prison will become at the receiving end. So there must be that sequential arrangement that when you are trying to empower one, let it tilt to other arms of criminal system. So doing, there may be a balancing. And the arms of criminal system should begin to think about proper interface, that they will be able to know the effect of one agency's activity on the other.
Disturbing as the issue may appear, Jafaru Ahmed is doing something differently to confront the lingering problem.
We have prisons where you have over 68% of the prisoner population are awaiting trial persons. And this is highly unacceptable. So on my maiden address, when I first came to the controllers, zonal coordinators, commandants of the various training schools, was to address them in such a way that they should make effort to reach out to the various chief judges of the states, the commissioners of police, and other stakeholders within the criminal justice system to ensure that this higher number of awaiting trial persons are reduced to the barest minimum. And on my part, I've also at various fora and at various opportunities that it provides itself, I have discussed with the stakeholders in the criminal justice system on way and manner in which we can reduce this number. And I'm happy to say that at a time, the number drastically reduced, only for it to resurge again. But we will continue with that effort to see that the congestion problem is clearly addressed. That is one part. On the second part, we are addressing infrastructural decay, like I have said and pointed out here. So we are building more cells where space allows, so that these prisons can also be able to accommodate as a quite number and regulate their capacity. But there are limitations to that, because these prisons are mostly urbanized. There are no space for them for any expansion. The only way is to move out of those places.
Just recently, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Akwa Ibom state government to relocate one of such prisons to a new place, so that it will give room for us to even expand the prison, because it's one of those prisons that are even overcrowded and there is no room for expansion as such. So we've signed, they offered us a piece of land which they will develop and hand over to us. Then we hand over the current site to them. Quite a number of state governments have also approached us.
It was also necessary to articulate a pathway to attract government's attention to the long-standing infrastructural decay in the system. And the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari did not fail in responding to this dire need. The concluding part of this success story will be brought to you in our subsequent edition, same time next week.